Hey there, welcome back to my series on practicing for the digital SAT. Today we'll be covering linear equations. Now we're going to dive into a couple examples. Both of these are going to come from the College Board Practice Test number 4. Now linear equations are probably the one topic that I would say you need to have really solid before you go ahead and take your SAT. So I wouldn't limit yourself to just these two practice problems. I would go ahead and try others that you see that are similar. So let's get started. We have a table here with different values of x and y. For the linear function f, the table shows 3 values of x and their corresponding values of f of x. Which equation defines f of x? You'll notice in all 4 of our answer choices, they are all equations of lines, which take the form y equals mx plus b. Now there are 2 components to a linear equation. There's the slope, which would be our m in the equation, and there's the y-intercept. On a graph, it would look something like this. A straight line, right? Linear equation, where here where we cross the y-axis, sorry, maybe I should label these x and y. Right here at this point where we would cross the y-axis would be our y-intercept. And to find the slope, we want to figure out how steep this line is. Steepness. So in order to do that, we're going to calculate or count the rise over the run. So our slope, which you may have heard as rise over run, or change in y over change in x, can be found either on a graph or in this case, we're going to look at our table. So since we're going to need the slope and the y-intercept to figure out which equation is correct, we'll go ahead and find those 2 pieces. Now the slope. If I want to start with the slope, we need to figure out how much is the change in y over the change in x. So the change in y is going to be the difference from one value to the next. So the difference between this value and the one before it, 32 minus 29, would be 3 units. The change in x is 1 unit. Let's make sure that the slope is consistent between each of the points. So from x value 1 to x value 2, the y value is 32, and again we see that it increases by 3. So that looks consistent to me. The change in y would be 3 values going up, 3 values going up for every 1 value going up in the x direction. So our slope should be 3. Now that actually answers our question for us, because if we look at all of the slopes, the number next to the x value, there's only one answer choice that has a value of 3. So our answer must be A. Now let's talk about the y-intercept too. The y-intercept, because it's where we cross the y-axis, should have an x value of 0. So the y-intercept is when x equals 0. We can very clearly see from our chart that when x equals 0, the y value is 29. So our y-intercept should be 29, which works out for choice A. All right, that looks good. Let's try the next. All right, so here now, instead of a table of values, we're given a graph. So it's a good thing we went over that in our first problem. We have a graph here, and we're going to try to figure out which of these equations matches the graph. So similar idea, we're going to be looking for our 2 parts, our slope and our y-intercept. Now the last one, I found the slope first, but I think this one I'm going to look for the y-intercept first. So the y-intercept is where we cross the y-axis. Here's the y-axis. So I'm going to go down, look for where our line crosses, and it appears that the y-intercept is at the point 0, negative 8. Remember, the x-coordinate comes first and then the y-coordinate. So 0, x, y, negative 8. Let's see. Actually, that doesn't help us at all. If we look at our answer choices, all of them have a y-intercept of negative 8. So it looks like we're going to have to find the slope now too. Now remember before, the slope is the change in y over the change in x. or we usually refer to it on a graph as rise over run. So we like to think of it like this to remind us to do the y value first. Now in this case, it doesn't seem like we will be rising, but maybe we'll be falling. So I'm going to start with this point here, and we are going to go down 2 units. Pay attention to the scale here. So I'm going to go down 2 units, and I'm going to go to the right 2 units. So down 2 to the right 2 would be my rise, or in this case my fall, over my run. This simplifies to -1. So now I'm looking for -1 as my x value, or as my slope, sorry. So -x minus 8, choice C. Okay, great. So if you were able to do these with some fairly good ease, I would try and look at other College Board examples or practice problems, maybe even the Blue Book where you see some linear equations. Okay, and as always, if you would like some one-on-one help, you can reach out to me at kkmathprep.com.